and welcome. I'm Barkha Dutt. You're watching the Mojo Story, the digital platform that does an in-depth analysis of one big issue every day. On the program today, we revisit the story of Shubham Gupta. Remember, you saw these pictures on your screen of young Shubham, who was medically boarded out of the National Defense Academy after he was injured. He was injured because he was taking a dive into the swimming pool, and that made him end up in this wheelchair. And after that, he has never got the recognition of being an ex-serviceman. But Shubham's story is not the story of him alone. What Shubham has gone through is what so many other officer trainees, officer cadets have to go through, as they are medically boarded out without any of the benefits of those in military service. Let's take a look at what those numbers look like. Since 1985, 448 cadets have been boarded out on medical grounds, but never been recognized or never been given the benefits of ex-servicemen. Now, this was in response to an RTI that was filed by Ankur Chaturvedi, an officer trainee cadet himself. He's going to be joining us, and you can see there the breakup between the Army, the Navy, and the Air Force. So this is something that really impacts cadets from all three services. And what's even more peculiar is that while officer cadets do not have this recognition, Jawans and civilian recruits do. So there is no parity either, and that's the big issue at the heart of Shubham's story. Shubham, of course, is looking for a new beginning, a new life, and he's back with us, along with many other officer cadets who've also been through the same situation. And let me introduce everybody on our program today. We're joined first by Ankur. Ankur Chaturvedi is an ex-cadet himself, and he filed that RTI which gave us all of that data, and he's really been campaigning for this. He's in the private sector here now, but this has been an issue close to his heart. We're also very pleased to welcome back to the program Shubham Gupta. You saw those pictures of his. Shubham is now in a motorized wheelchair. His fight was for a wheelchair, but it wasn't really about a wheelchair. It was for that recognition of being an ex-serviceman. We're also joined on the program by Anunaya Chaturvedi, who's an ex-cadet. And we're joined by Chetan Choudhary, also an ex-cadet. And it is my pleasure to welcome Major Navdeep Singh, who's done yeoman service for disabled soldiers of all categories, and he's done a lot of work in this area as well. And it's great to have Navdeep on the program. And, I want the larger context, Navdeep, from you first. I think that's very important because, the most common response every time, even when we reported the story of Shubham, was how can Shubham be given the same recognition as a serving military officer or as someone who did not complete his tenure in the NDA? And that's what happens again and again. But I think you've been pointing out that the issue is an absence of parity, that Jawans and civilian recruits, in fact, do get this recognition. So talk a little bit about the big picture before we hear the individual stories from all of these officer trainee cadets who were medically boarded out. Navdeep.
See, firstly, as Mr. Chaturvedi's RTI has pointed out, and you've also highlighted that there are just about 400 something cases, 448 cases, which is just nothing. I mean, it's a small drop in a huge ocean. There are about 180,000 disability pensioners that we have in India, and 448 people is just nothing. And it is very painful that we are, that I'm here on your show, and you're having to do this show, and people, portraying their travails in this on this subject. It's very sad that we've come to this stage, because this issue should have been sorted out and resolved many years ago. Now, coming to the point, see, it is a self-created anomaly. Nobody from the outside has told the Ministry of Defense over the last so many decades not to give them pension. So they give them an amount called the ex-gratia and an ex-gratia disability award. And rather than calling it disability pension and paying it at regular rates by linking it to the notional pay as they were going to receive after they were commissioned, or after they, or even the stipend in certain cases, which is equivalent to pay that they are already receiving. Instead of calling it disability pension, somebody termed it ex gratia award, and it is continuing till date. And as a result of which, they're not considered pensioners, they're not considered disability pensioners, they're not considered ex-servicemen. men, as in, they still use the term men
Yeah.
even after uh, having women in the forces. But that ex-servicemen, that technical status of ex-servicemen is not given. They're not treated as former government employees. They're not given medical facilities under the ECHS or under the CGHS, as is applicable to other central government employees. So, and nobody has stated from the outside or some other ministry. Nobody has told the Ministry of Defense to do this to the officer training, the three services. It is just that they started off with this nomenclature and they're continuing with this nomenclature. Now, all other categories, including the recruits at Jawan level, get proper disability pension, get medical facilities, medical care, ex-serviceman status, status of a former pensioner, status of a former employee. Civilians get it. Even a peon on the civil side would get everything if he or she is injured. In fact, they cannot be medically boarded out because they are protected by the Persons with Disabilities Act. But in case they are boarded out, in certain rare situations, such as in the Central Armed Police Forces, they get everything. So this is the only category, and just 400 something people, and they're still fighting for justice. And that is after late Mr. Mohan Parikar had given in approval, in principle approval to this issue, and he has stated that this is a very painful thing. He had referred it to a committee of experts. Also, the committee of experts had also recommended resolution of the anomaly. But till date, even 6 years after the recommendations of the committee of experts and the in principle approval, nothing has moved. So it's very
Yeah.
painful. And more painful is the fact that the political executive is with us. The higher, the higher layers of the bureaucracy of the military establishment, even the financial establishment is with us. And it is only at the lower level somebody will put some
So who's
hypertech.
stalling it? Because I'm seeing excerpts from this report that very clearly says that this nomenclature is inane, it's insensitive, it's an artificial distinction, it's an absurd proposition. This is the Ministry of Defence's own report that you have so kindly shared with us, Navdeep. And I think the point you're making is nobody really wants to stop it. Ever since Shubham's story came out, we've seen former chiefs of staff coming out and saying these rules have to change. So ye kahan ruka hua hai? Where is it
See,
stuck?
see, I always say so. People do not agree with me, but I always say so that under the Westminster system of one-way file noting system of decision making, what happens is that even if the top people want a change, it has to come with a danda from top down. But what happens is that this one-way file noting system, and even at the lowest level of the section officer or undersecretary, somebody puts in a silly fear-mongering kind of a note on the file, and they send the file into orbit to Law Ministry, to Department of Expenditure, Department of Military Affairs, Department of Ex-Servicemen Welfare. So the easiest way is to frighten the system, to write something very stupid, write something totally illogical, and something to which there is no direct answer, and you just put the file into orbit. This is
Yeah.
what is happening here. The decision-making process has to be collegiate. It has to be after stakeholder consultation. It has to be participative. Till that happens, not just in this case, in many other issues, even when top people are convinced, even when it is legally permissible, even when it is ordained by law, these file notings are very damaging, and somebody has to take a call. Mr. Parikar wanted to take a call. Mr. Rajnath Singh, I believe, is also very, very positive on these issues. But then somebody has to wield the stick and get things going.
And before I get the individual stories of the cadets who were boarded out here, Navdeep, I think what you're really saying is that these are people who, dreamt of being soldiers, were medically boarded out during their training, and now belong to no category. They're nowhere. They're kind of nowhere men and women.
See, they were training to be officers. They left all other options. There was also a tacit and a notional master employer or employee-employer relationship between them and the government, because they were being paid a stipend slash pay slash notional pay. And just to say that because of a disability which may even be related to service or attributable to service or aggravated by service, caused by the military training, and they're thrown out, literally thrown out on medical grounds, and then you wash off your hands and you say, oh, we have nothing to do with you, we'll just pay you this measly ex-gratia, and you're now on your own.
Yeah,
As a
yeah,
nation, it should be very painful to me. It's a totally politically neutral issue.
yeah.
The government, any government in power, any person in power, we should introspect and stand in front of a mirror and say, what are we doing to these people? And 448 people, it's a joke. It's a joke. 448 people, that's just nothing. That's just nothing. it's half of an infantry battalion. I mean, 13 lakhs की army है, 26 lakh pensioners, 1 lakh 80,000 disability pensioners, and 4 lakh 448 people, and we are making a hue and cry about it. This should have been
Yeah.
sorted out 50 years back.
Couldn't agree with you more. Before we sort of get into the personal stories of everybody here, Ankur, I'll start with you because I know this has been a big campaign. First, talk a little bit about yourself before we come to the issue. You obviously trained to be a soldier. What happened to you, and then how did this become an issue so close to your heart, Ankur?
Thank you very much, Barkha. And thank you, Navdeep, for championing the cause of disabled cadets. Now, as far as I'm concerned, I was very fortunate to get into the National Defense Academy and do almost my full training there. And I am what I am today because of what I learned in the National Defense Academy. I was boxing and uh, literally sparring. It was not even a match. And in the sparring, I got injured and I got a punch in my lower abdomen, which damaged the kidney. And subsequently, I was diagnosed with a medical condition related to the kidney, and I was medically boarded out. It was very traumatic because I'd never thought of doing anything else in life but being an army officer. I had plan A, B, C, D till Z, but everything landed up to being an army officer. And once that was taken away, I didn't know what to do, and I'd lost the will to live. Uh, I had major mental health issues. I also indulged in drug abuse. But fortunately for me, and with the support of a very strong mother, a single parent, and my family, and some very good friends, I could snap out of it and get into the corporate world.
But you're being very
Like,
honest about, sorry, just to interrupt you there because you've said so many emotional things. I just want to pause and reflect on them. You've said you lost the will to live. You've said your mental health was badly hit. You lapsed into drugs. How long did this period go on when the fact that you were medically boarded out, you couldn't achieve your dream of being a soldier, made you basically not want to live? How long did this carry on for you?
ma'am, to be very honest, I have not gotten over it 100%. I hate to say this instead of all the young people I give lectures to who are there on the show today. I am very sorry to be sounding weak, but even today, there are times when I just can't hold myself back. There are times when I watch a movie. There are times a lot of people you interviewed during the Kargil war were my classmates. Every time I think of them, every time I see them, it's just I I can't tell you. I still have even now the very fact that I cannot be a soldier is something I have not been able to come to terms with even today. Uh, but then, like I say, this is a pain that I will live with. It is not. I have managed to conquer this to the extent that I don't think of killing myself, but that pain is still there. And as far as getting back to normal was concerned, I would say for a period of about 6 months, I was a total waste. And only my mother knows how she coped up with me.
I feel your pain because I know that those who want to join the military, they're not doing it for money and for those things that other private jobs do. They're doing it for the romance of the uniform. They're doing it for the izzat. They're doing it out of passion, and for the passion to be robbed away from you, it's heartbreaking. But Ankur, can you talk a little bit about the pain? एक तो वो दर्द था कि आप सोल्जर नहीं बन पाए, उसके बाद जो दर्द हुआ कि आपको सोल्जर का दर्जा भी नहीं दिया गया, though you had signed up to be one and you were boarded out for no fault of yours. उसके बारे में बात करिए, how this became the big sort of centerpiece of your life even after you joined the private sector.
I'll be very honest with you, and I would say that my course mates, overall, the military has been very kind to me. They've always continued to make me feel a part of the family. So I would not say that I faced a very strong rejection because immediately after being boarded out, I joined the tea industry. I was in the Northeast, and quite a few of my course mates were posted around me. So I used to hang out with them. Even now, when I'm based in Calcutta, I'm very much part of the extended social circle of the military. Uh, I I still have that connection. Fortunately for me, there is not. I could do well in the corporate world, and even my family was not so badly off that they needed financial support for me. So when it comes to me personally, I do think there is must be this very pointed question that you're already earning so much. If you get a pension, is it not cheating the government? Well, to be very honest, I would very happily give away my pension. Even today, whatever ex-gratia get goes into charitable works. By God's grace, I can earn a decent living which takes care of my and my family's needs. But then when I came across some people who were really badly off, their confidence level was low. They could not even take up the fight. With due regards, I'll talk about Chetan. When Chetan was being boarded out, there was a documentation error done by the military hospital when he was sent on leave pending withdrawal. Just to correct that documentation error, they sent a letter to Chetan's home for Chetan to get back to the hospital to redo the medical board. Now imagine a person who was 100% disabled. He did not even have control over his bowel movements to be taken in a train halfway across the country just because someone made a mistake in the documentation error. And when I spoke to his father's reply was, "साहब क्या करे? साहब ने बोला है, अब तो किसी भी तरह ले जाना पड़ेगा. रास्ते में लोग गालियां देंगे, उनको थोड़ी पता है. रास्ते में तो लोग बोलते हैं ऐसे बेटे को क्यों, ऐसे आदमी को लेके क्यों आ रहे हैं गाड़ी में." Now these are the type of things which drive me to fight. I'm very happy. There were some great people. Chetan's company commander in OTA who stood by this, moved the file, and we made sure that the medical was eventually done in a MH very close to where he stayed.
Mhm.
These are the things, the people who actually need the maximum help, they do not even have the wherewithal to fight. So that is why I took this up.
Yeah, and I think you make the important point कि सबको शायद उस पेंशन की जरूरत नहीं है, पर एक प्रिंसिपल भी इन्वॉल्व है, which I'll get Navdeep to talk about. But चेतन की आपने बात की, चेतन हम चाहते हैं कि हमारे ऑडियंस को आपके साथ क्या हुआ आप बताएं. मैं अपने नोट्स में पढ़ रही हूँ कि आप 2015 की बात है और आपको इंजरी जो हुई बॉक्सिंग ट्रेनिंग के दौरान हुई और आपको ब्रेन इंजरी हुई एंड यू हैड टू बी मेडिकली बोर्डेड आउट. आप थोड़ा बताएंगे कि आपके साथ क्या हुआ चेतन?
Ma'am, I joined Officers Training Academy on 3 January 2015. My training was going good, then the novices boxing event came up. And on 24th April 2015, my bout was on the third day. It was a bit irregularities or some misconduct that was happened to me. And I was conked off. I was hit on the head right here and was unconscious for I don't know how much time. On papers, it is 51 days in ICU, 109 hours of total unconsciousness, and 3 months of coma. But I opened my eyes after 1.5 years when I started my remembering my father, my mother, and all. It was shattering that when I get to know that I was out of army right now. It was so shattering because my whole lineage, my whole family was from army, from my great grandfather to my father, all were in army. And then I was already lined up from my very first class in the school that I have to join army. I was a good sports player as well. Was completed my 10th with 92% marks. Was awarded from Rajnath Singh sir.
Mm-hmm.
I was chemistry topper in the state topper of 12th in 2014. Got selected for of but there some miscarriage happened and whatsoever.
And
I
you are
don't want to
saying,
remember that.
and you are saying कि आप 1.5 साल तक you were not conscious?
Actually, it was the time when I get to मतलब मैं जानना पहचानना शुरू किया था कि ये मेरे पापा हैं, ये मेरी मदर है. तब मुझे जानना वरना 3 months कॉमा था मेरा जो एक्चुअली पेपर्स है.
तो जब आपको पता लगा, जब आप होश में एक तरह से when you got when your faculties were restored or you recovered और आपको पता लगा कि आप अब फौज में नहीं हो सकते, तो आपका पहला थॉट क्या था?
सर पहला थॉट क्या होगा एक बंदे का कि उसके सपने से दूर कर दिया जाए. I was having syringe, those medical scissor over me. उन्हें देखकर बस यही आता था कि मार लो खुद को. तब सपने ही नहीं बचे तो जी के क्या फायदा. बट
और
कमजोर नहीं पड़ना था. मेरी फैमिली ने मेरे बहुत सपोर्ट किया मैम. माई फादर, माई सिस्टर और माई स्पाइन, उनकी वजह से मैं आपसे बात कर रहा हूँ. मैं खड़ा हुआ आज उनकी वजह से.
और ये जो रिकॉग्निशन है जिसके लिए आप लोग सब लड़ रहे हैं, अगर आप बताना चाहें लोगों को कि ये क्यों जरूरी है, तो आप क्या बोलेंगे चेतन?
मैं एक चीज बताना चाहूंगा. मैं अपने ट्रीटमेंट के लिए जाता हूँ R&R दिल्ली कैंट में. तो मुझे वहां पे अगर मैं अकेले जाऊंगा मुझे घुसने नहीं दिया जाएगा. बिकॉज वो कहते हैं आप अपना आई कार्ड दिखाइए, कोई एक आइडेंटिफिकेशन कार्ड दिखाइए अपना. और वो हमें नहीं मिलता. मतलब मुझे साफ साफ कह देता आप आर्मी में कभी थे ही नहीं. वो मुझे मना कर देता कि मैंने कभी आर्मी का हिस्सा भी हुआ हूँ. मेरे पापा मेरे को लेके जाते हैं क्योंकि उनका एक्स आर्मी पर्सन का कार्ड है. मैं उनके कार्ड से एंटर करता हूँ वहां पे, तब जाके मेरा मेडिकल ट्रीटमेंट होता है. अब तो मेडिकल ट्रीटमेंट ही बंद हो चुका है, वैसे मेडिसिन लेने जाता हूँ मैं.
आप कह
मैम
रहे
ये
हैं कि अगर आप अपने पापा के बिना चाहते, जो फौज में थे, अगर आप खुद जाते तो आपको एंट्री नहीं दी जाती, क्योंकि वो
नहीं करनी.
रिकॉग्नाइज ही नहीं करते कि आप कभी फौजी थे, क्योंकि आपकी ट्रेनिंग खत्म नहीं हो पाई।
अब मैं अपना मार्क दिखाऊंगा तो ऐसे करके दिखाऊंगा. इट्स अ होल ऑपरेशन ओवर देयर. आई कैन नॉट शो दिस एज आइडेंटिफिकेशन मार्क, राइट?
It's so it's just, I don't know, Navdeep, whether to feel sad or whether to feel angry or what to feel. I mean, it's just horrible. Navdeep, I just want to bring you in before I go to Shubham and Anunaya. Navdeep, can we unmute Navdeep, please? Yeah, go
A
ahead.
very interesting thing Mr. Ankur Chaturvedi said, that somebody said that आप pension लोगे तो you'll be cheating the system. What kind of sadistic minds would say such a thing? Cheating the system? I mean, is it a joke? There's loss of service, there's loss of employment, there's loss of earning capacity, and if you are compensated for it like every other government employee or every other government trainee, is it called cheating the system? This attitude towards people with disabilities, with persons with disabilities, whether it is a small issue or even a disease like hypertension or a coronary artery disease, or whether it is loss of limb, or whether it is injury during training, we have to be really sensitive and sensitized towards these issues. I mean, these are medical conditions. You have to be very soft towards these issues, and this is one of the problems that that is very rampant in the military community. There's a kind of a stupid kind of a jealousy. Somebody opined that a person who had a loss of hearing. अरे आप हेयरिंग एड लगा देते हो, आपको डिसेबिलिटी पेंशन की क्या जरूरत है? हेयरिंग एड लगा के सुन तो लेते हो सब कुछ. What a stupid thing to say. I mean, somebody, he or she was trying to join the army, got injured with a disability which is attributable to military service or military training, or aggravated by military training, with which you have to spend the entire life. It's a lifetime issue. You won't be able to earn that much. You won't be able to work in that manner. And here somebody says that you'll be cheating the system.
Yeah.
This is totally crazy. I cannot understand it. Nobody is doing anybody a favor. This is their right. They must get it. And thankfully, I hear the Honorable Punjab and Haryana High Court had ordered last year that this issue should be resolved, and there should not be unnecessary litigation on this. They directed the government, and I hear there have been a series of meetings on the matter in the last 2 or 3 months, and the matter I believe will be resolved. It will be resolved soon. But the thing is that why should this agony be prolonged so much? I'm
Yeah.
absolutely sure, sanguine, that it will be resolved. But why to prolong this agony? I mean, here, Mr. Chaturvedi, here, Chetan, Shubham, Anunaya. I mean, their stories. It would bring a tear to the strongest
Yeah.
of eye. But it's
Yeah.
very sad. And again, as I said, the attitude towards persons with disabilities. Major DP Singh. I mean, Major DP Singh lost his his leg in a war, and there was nobody to counsel him in the hospital, saying that, oh, आपकी लात चली गई है, you're a war disabled person, and how to cope up with the loss, how somebody to speak sweetly, to speak compassionately, to be a little, to present a little softness. we have to have a system. We have to be very, very sensitive towards the health of the men and women in uniform in whichever way we can.
Yeah.
And let's forget, the financial aspect, etc. That's secondary. Let's be very sensitive to these people, whether it is cadets, whether it is men and women in uniform, whether it is other persons with disabilities. We need to change our attitude.
Absolutely. And I just don't understand why we can't think out of the box instead of being bureaucratic about this. Anunaya, can I ask you now to please share what happened with you? I know that you were in the Officers Training Academy in Chennai in 2009. You were
Yes.
medically boarded out after a fracture. Can you talk a little bit about what happened with you?
Yes. I was in the second term of my training at OTA. And it was April 2010 when I sustained an injury during a run. It was a fractured neck of femur, right leg. In next 6 months, I underwent 3 surgeries. One at the Air Force Command Hospital in Bengaluru, and other 2 at Base Hospital, Delhi. First one, unfortunately, did not go well. The implant they had put in my leg was broken. So another implant had to be put in the next surgery, and another surgery for the bone to finally start healing. I was then sent to OTA for all the documentation, my medical board out procedure. Spent some more time in MH Chennai. I actually spent around 2 years in different military hospitals, and 2 years of not being able to walk on your feet. A period where I didn't know would I finally be able to walk on my feet or not. And then I knew that I am not going to be retained in military. So there's a dream. There's, like you said, like Chetan said, there were no plans. Like Ankur sir said, there were no plans. There's only one plan A, to join Forge. Even if I had plans, plan B, C, D, they were all shattered, because at an age of 25, 26, when you start from scratch again, you're way behind from the people you started with. My course mates were 5 and 6 years ahead of me already, and I was doing absolutely nothing. So there was a time when I stopped taking calls and messages from people who were there with me, because everybody asked aur batao, and I had nothing to tell. Like, aur batao ka to koi jawab tha hi nahi, kyunki kuch nahi ho raha tha. So basically, it's not about money, like Navdeep sir and Ankur sir pointed out. It's not about money every time. It's the time we lose. It's all the efforts that have already gone into vain. And now, uska koi compensation nahi hai. Us samay ko hum वापस नहीं ला सकते. और एक equal opportunity हमारे जैसे लोगों को मिलना बहुत मुश्किल हो जाता है उस समय. In fact, I would like to say that I, in fact, I'm the fortunate among the lot. I am still, I'm viable financially. मैं अपने पैरों पे खड़ी हूँ, physically भी और otherwise भी. But you see stories of Shubham and Chetan and such bright young minds. Why are they abandoned like this? They should not be abandoned like this. None of us should. It is their right. बहुत सारी चीजें छोड़ के जब हम फाइनली ये चूज करते हैं कि हमें जाना है कंट्री के लिए कुछ करने के लिए, तो किसी ऐसी गलती की सजा हमारे जैसे लोगों को नहीं मिलनी चाहिए जो हमने नहीं की. And it's very difficult to actually speak up after hearing to all those things that Chetan said. It's difficult. I kind of relate to it. मैं एक स्ट्रेचर पर थी और मुझे जब चेन्नई से बैंगलोर भेजा गया तो इमरजेंसी विंडो के थ्रू उन्होंने मुझे अंदर पुश किया, एंड आई वाज lying on the platform for 2 odd hours. Everybody passing, guys, what happened? Why is she even traveling? Why is she even made to travel? इस तरीके की चीजें जो होती हैं, वो सारा समय जो हमने बर्बाद किया, जो हमारे पर्सनल और प्रोफेशनल दोनों जिंदगियों में चला गया, वो कभी वापस नहीं आ सकता.
और दर्द, मैं आपकी आवाज में एक दर्द सुन सकती हूँ. वो दर्द सिर्फ अपने लिए नहीं है, वो दर्द एक कम्युनिटी के लिए है. That's you in the hospital on the stretcher, or that you were talking about. But also, that a Chetan can't enter an R&R hospital, that a Shubham is in a wheelchair.
It is same for all of us, ma'am. It's the same plight for all of us. Whenever, like Chetan pointed out, we don't have an I card. We cannot show any identity through which we are permitted into the cant areas. I think most of the cases, we don't even have medical facilities. We don't have. Now, also, again, in most cases, all our medical documents are kept with the army, with the organization. They don't give those documents to us. Now, suppose if I develop some sort of problem after my treatment, which was done by force, if I visit a civilian doctor, I have no history to show to him. I can only, explain things to him in layman language. I don't know what to say from a doctor's part because somebody who treated me, I don't have my documents. I have nothing with me.
What do you do now, Anunaya? What do you do now?
I am currently teaching in Navodaya Vidyalaya, Jodhpur, ma'am.
और चेतन आप क्या करते हैं?
Ma'am, I'm preparing for civil services.
You're preparing for civil services?
No more studies left.
That's fantastic. I really hope you make it. But one of the things जो मैंने शुभम से सीखा, because he was boarded out of the NDA, is that NDA में आप जाते हैं तो आपको JNU से एक BA की डिग्री मिलती है. But because he was boarded out after 2 years, he lost those 2 years. He had to go back and start his BA from scratch. And Shubham, remember, is paralyzed neck downwards. So for him, the opportunities are limited, though I don't see why. Shubham, हम पहले इसके बारे में बात कर चुके हैं, लेकिन जिन लोगों ने आपकी कहानी, आपके सपने नहीं सुने, आप जरा बताइए मुझे. हमें मालूम है स्विमिंग की एक एक्सीडेंट में यू वर पैरालाइज्ड एंड यू आर इन अ व्हीलचेयर नाउ, बट आगे क्या करना चाहते हैं? और ये जो लड़ाई है जो आप लोग सब इकट्ठे लड़ रहे हैं, वो सिर्फ पैसे की लड़ाई नहीं है. योर पेरेंट्स कैन लुक आफ्टर यू. इट्स नॉट अबाउट मनी ओनली. बताइए शुभम.
यस मैम, जब हम एकेडमी में एंटर करते हैं ना मैम, उस डे 1 से ही हम वो सपने देखने लग जाते हैं कि जब हम वो पोर्टल्स ऑफ एकेडमी से पास आउट करेंगे. एंड जब वो टूट जाते हैं ना मैम, दैट ब्रोकन ग्लास ऑफ ड्रीम्स डज नॉट लेट यू स्लीप. वो दोबारा सपने देखना ही बहुत मुश्किल होता है कैडेट के लिए जो बोर्ड आउट हो जाता है. और जब वो बाहर आता है सिविल लाइफ में, उसके पास कुछ नहीं होता, उसके पास कोई रिकग्निशन नहीं होती, उसके पास कोई आइडेंटिटी नहीं होती. तो गवर्नमेंट हमें कुछ ऐसा प्रोवाइड कर सकती है कि जिससे हम एक डिग्निफाइड और रिस्पेक्टेबल सेकंड स्टार्ट दे सकें अपनी लाइफ को. कुछ ऐसा करना चाहिए हमारी लाइफ को जिससे हम ट्रैक पे आ जाएं. हमें ऐसा ना लगे कि हमारे जो पीयर्स थे, चाहे वो सिविल लाइफ से थे या मिलिट्री लाइफ से थे, वो सभी हमसे आगे निकल गए हैं. और हम जिन्होंने इतनी मतलब शिद्दत से हमने अपनी ट्रेनिंग की, अपनी बॉडीज को रिस्क पे डाला, इन दी एंड हमें ऐसा ना लगे कि हमारे हाथ में कुछ भी नहीं रहा.
और अगर आप कुछ आगे कहना चाहें कि आप क्या करना चाहते हैं, तो वो क्या होगा?
मैम, बस मैम यही कहूंगा कि वी वांट अ डिग्निफाइड एंड रिस्पेक्टेबल सेकंड स्टार्ट ऑफ लाइफ.
Dignified and respectable second start at life. Navdeep, one of the things I don't understand, and I know maybe I'm like, because they haven't completed their training, this can't be possible, is why can't there be a diversion into a desk-oriented job in the military itself where there is that functionality? Like, why is that not an option?
See, it was always an option. In the year 1995, based on something we had ratified in the United Nations, a very progressive act called the Persons with Disabilities Act was promulgated. The bill was passed and it became an act. So Section 47 of it said that nobody will be discharged or from any service, and no services would be dispensed with on account of any disability. It was a very progressive act. Now, it was passed in 1995 and it was applicable to all. And there was a proviso that in case some organization wants to get itself exempted, it may. It applied to the army also. In the year 2002, on the asking of the military itself, the military and the defense services were exempted from exemption of the act, meaning thereby the military went to the government to say that please exempt us from the operation. Correct. And allow us to discharge people and throw people out without any protection of employment. Now that act, a new act has come now, Persons with Disabilities Act 2016, and the same problem is still there. So rather than saying that, okay, let's discharge them from military related combatant jobs, but let's give them some desk related option or some civilinized option anywhere, or let's shift them over to such jobs, we go and say, exempt us from operation of the act. So again, that's why I say there is lack of foresight. These are self-invented problems. That is why I always tell everyone in the military, in the defense establishment, be large-hearted, be humane, be welfare-oriented, don't axe your own feet. So now, as things stand, we don't have any policy wherein, uh, even serving personnel or jawans or officer trainees or trainees can be shifted to other jobs which do not require you to be adept at the profession of arms. So even if you cannot be a combatant, you can be another government employee somewhere. Where is the problem? There's a full-fledged parliamentary act in your favor. But if you go to the government and you say, no, we don't want this act, we don't want this protection, where does the fault lie? Come on, go to the government, say we want this protection, but because in the military you require fit people, don't keep them in the military, but shift them over to some civilian vocation. Where is the problem? There is no problem. It's only a problem of the attitude. So there are ways and means to resolve everything. It is only a question of attitude. These are self-created anomalies. Let's all put our heads together. Let's get justice for them, and we can do it ourselves. We can do it ourselves. There is no problem at all. Just be large-hearted and resolve these matters.
चेतन, आप कुछ बोलना चाह रहे हैं इसमें? अंदर अंकुर, चेतन?
मैं यही चीज कहना चाहता था, जो भी सर नवदीप सर ने, अंकुर सर ने पॉइंट आउट की है कि इफ वी आर नॉट फिट फॉर अ ग्राउंड जॉब, वी कैन फिट फॉर अ डेस्क जॉब. बस यही चीज थी हमारे मन में कि हमें एक जॉब मिल सके आर्मी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में. और मैं एक और चीज बताना चाहता था कि आफ्टर माई इंजरी, माई सिस्टर इंदु चौधरी, उनके मन में ये रहा कि मेरे भाई वापस आ गया तो मैं जाऊंगी. नाउ शी सब इंस्पेक्टर इन सशस्त्र सीमा बल, वो भी सर्व कर रही है हमारी कंट्री को. बट वही चीज है कि वो दर्द यहाँ पे रह जाता है.
तो जब आपकी बहन जाना चाह रही थी फौज में, आपने उनको इनकरेज किया कि डिस्करेज किया?
मैम इनकरेज किया. शी इज माई एवरीथिंग. उन्होंने मेरा फॉर्म भरा था बिना बताए टीएस के लिए फॉर द एंट्री ऑफ द एसएसबी. उन्होंने मेरे को मेरा कॉल लेटर दिया कि ले भाई जा, तेरा कॉल लेटर आ गया. एंड शी वाज द एवरीथिंग फॉर मी.
It's lovely, and in some ways what I'm hearing you say is that the forge is everything for all of you, right? And so the forge should be more generous, and I know that the forge, as Navdeep says, wants to be. ये कहीं पे कहाँ फाइल अटकी हुई है, क्योंकि शुभम के साथ भी यही हुआ. शुभम, your brother also joined the military after what happened to you.
Yes, ma'am. मैंने अपने भाई को मैम always encourage किया कि you don't have to be bogged down with my injury. You have to look at life positively. Not all journeys meet the same fate, and you will do well in service.
Ankur, you were wanting to add?
Just adding to what Navdeep mentioned, interestingly, in the 70s, there was a case of flight cadet Vijay Singh. He was an ex-NDA, joined the Air Force Academy, and he crashed his trainer aircraft during a solo flight. And he was medically boarded up. Interestingly, he was given disability pension in the 70s. But that was also not sufficient. He wrote a letter to the Chief Justice of India, which was admitted as a writ. And in 87, an order was passed where the Union of India agreed to give him shelter employment. He joined the Defense Estates Department as a Group A officer and has since retired. Even though the order of the Supreme Court in that case directed the Union of India to make policies for cadets, since then nothing has happened. And interestingly, various RTIs have failed to yield any record of this case anywhere in the official establishment.
Yeah, because so much of it is at the discretion, I think, also of individual chiefs, of individuals, but we have to have an institutionalized system. Anunaya, last word to you. I think you made the point about it being identity, which is why in Chetan and Shubham's case, you actually see that despite the tragic endings to their journeys, they both have siblings who went into the military after what happened to them. So there's no bitterness in them, कोई गुस्सा नहीं है, कोई cynicism नहीं है, एक चाहत है. It's like a dream interrupted. But I think what people don't understand is it's not just about the pension or the benefits of the ECHS. It's about the recognition of being a military person.
Ma'am, the very first day in academy, all the cadets, I think everybody would agree. We are told that there's a thumb rule in all the academies: one for all and all for one. So the one who unfortunately could not take the antim pug because of anything, because of any unfortunate reason, where are these all? Where are these all gone for that one? Is my question. I really want to. If the organization is known for the camaraderie, where is
Yeah.
that camaraderie gone? This is what I wonder, and I don't have any sibling who has joined the forces again, but yes, there are no grudges. Like Ankur said in the very starting, we are what we are today because there's a lot that we learned in the academies. कुएं की मेंढक की तरह होते हैं हम लोग, वो छोटे क्लास BC सिटीज से आए हुए बच्चे, खासकर जिस तरीके का एक्सपोजर उन्हें वहां मिलता है, वो nothing can match that. There is so much that we learn and we use in our lives, so it's important. I have a lot of students who are very interested in joining army, so now I have that chance to motivate them, guide them a little. I do that. There are no grudges, but yes, we do look for that camaraderie, for those all who could stand for the the odd ones that could not take the antim pag in the academy.
Yeah. Navdeep, last word to you. As you said, this is less than 500 people we're talking about. It cannot take 3 decades, 4 decades to resolve this. And that's how long this has been carrying on. Surely there is an imaginative way. It's not just about saying कि आपको ECH या RNR में, ये facility दी जाएगी. There must be a better way, because these are people who are 18. They're 16 साल के बच्चे होंगे when they first decide कि हमें NDA में जाना है. और आप 18, 19, 20 साल में किसी की जिंदगी बदल दें, उनके पास their best years they have said we will risk it for our country. और उसके बाद we can't offer them something more imaginative, something more compassionate. We can't absorb them into the military in some other role. Why is that, Navdeep?
Why is again a very big question. I mean, I fail to understand. Why have we not been able to resolve this very, very easily, resolvable anomaly. There's just nothing, and nothing is to be done except that the term ex-gratia is to be converted into disability pension. Rather than saying disability ex-gratia payment, you call it disability pension and regulate it at notional rates as applicable to an army officer.
But we can do better than that, right? We can do better than the disability pension. We can absorb them in other roles in the military or in affiliated services.
No, everything will follow. Once that is done, you become an ex-serviceman. You are entitled to the status of an ex-serviceman. You are entitled to the status of an ex-government officer, to ECHS, to CGHS, also in reservation in various government jobs. And plus, of course, as I said, that rather than boarding out, an option needs to be given to shift them to equivalent Group A jobs on the civil side. So it's just a small step, and all consequences will be positive, and everything will follow, and things will be resolved. There is no problem. It's just an attitudinal problem and some prestige issue by some undersecretary or section officer level officer. What is this? I mean, once the defense minister says this has to be done, it has to be done.
Yeah,
it must be done.
It's an absolute shame, and I actually think that our campaign must go beyond, Ankur, the disability pension. But Navdeep says that's the first step from which a lot else will flow, that recognition of being an ex-serviceman or woman, as the case may be. From that, many other things can flow. But I just see all these young faces on my screen, and it is heartbreaking, and it's particularly poignant because none of you are angry or bitter or sad or victims. Yes, you went through phases where you didn't want to live. Yes, you lost that optimism in phases, but you all bounced back, and that is the true indomitable Fauji spirit. So you already have it. I have to say thank you with the promise that we will keep picking this up. Navdeep has been a stellar voice on it, and we promise to lend our voice on it, and we wish all of you the best, and God bless all of you. And thank you, and take care, and we'll bring you back as we follow this campaign. Thank you very much. It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.